Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Vasquez and you are watching Bare Bones Media. This channel is dedicated to exploring our community in Pacific County and the wider Pacific Northwest. We will be talking with public officials, entrepreneurs, and new developments in our community. If you have people that you would like to recommend on this channel, well, feel free to leave a comment or send us an email at BearbonesAe@gmail.com. All right, today we're interviewing Erik. You are kind of the behind the whole North Jetty Brewing Company, right?
That's correct.
So why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Erik Svendsen. I'm the owner and operator of North Jetty Brewing. We've been, it'll be 10 years in April that we've been open in Seaview, and we've been brewing there since 2012.
Okay, that's quite some time. And how long have you been brewing in general?
I started home brewing in college in, I believe, 1996.
Really?
That's when I bought my first homebrew kit. Yeah.
Okay.
And I bought it in Vancouver, Washington, homebrew store there, Bader. And I went to school in Ellensburg, Central Washington.
Yeah.
And back then, there was about two beers you could get. You could get, in Ellensburg, you could get craft beer. You could get Red Hook. And you could usually get Pyramid, Hefeweizen, and then that kind of transitioned to Widmer as they sort of got bigger. But that was about it. So, we started brewing our own and have fun. Well, I started brewing and my roommates liked it. And from there.
So as far as I remember, like that's pretty much during that almost micro brewery boom thing going on, right? There's a lot of brewing going on in the whole like Portland area. San Diego was blowing up with that too.
Yeah, Colorado, areas of Michigan.
Yeah,
were kind of the sort of leading areas, but certainly the Pacific Northwest, I think, and down south into California, the West Coast were really kind of, I think, the incubators of it.
Yeah.
And so even though I wasn't there were no breweries in Ellensburg, you're starting to get Full Sail in the Gorge, Bridgeport Brewing in Portland was starting to come up. So there's starting to be, and back then it was mostly Sierra Nevada Green Label is what you saw, a lot of pale ales coming out of Chico. I've always liked cooking, I always liked chemistry and that kind of thing, and so buying the homebrew kit, it was sort of this combination of cooking and chemistry, and it was, as you say, when things were just kind of starting to really kind of get rolling and people were seeing that this was a kind of a viable thing, this taproom craft beer industry.
Yeah, and that's still going. I mean, it's still growing pretty steady from what I know.
It's, we've kind of hit now where, so when we opened our doors in 2014 or when we got licensed in 2012, there were, I believe, between 3,000 and 3,500 breweries in the nation. It was the big talk at that point was a few years before that, we had just gotten back to pre-prohibition brewery levels in this country. A lot of them got obviously shut down during Prohibition. There ended up being about 12 that survived or something like that.
Yeah.
Right now, we're over 9,000 breweries in the nation, and I would say definitely we've hit a maturity phase in the craft beer industry. We just saw Budweiser spin off all the craft breweries that they bought, and they just spun those off. And so we're definitely in a mature market. Drinking trends are changing. The younger generation are drinking more cocktails, more seltzers. Our challenge now is to keep up with that, is to keep pulling people in and keep them excited about drinking, because you are for the first time starting to see a net, I think, decrease in breweries. And I think that's going to continue into probably over the next few years as we kind of hit an equilibrium point.
So you said you started getting into this in college. Did you end up going to school for brewing, or?
No, I did it as a hobby. It was always a hobby to me. So I graduated from Central Washington in 1998. I had a degree in accounting. So I started working in Portland as a CPA. I did that for about 9 years, and then I was a CFO at a trucking company for a couple of years, and then we moved out here. But no, it's just always been a hobby, and then after I got out of college, I built what's called an all-grain system. During college, I did what we call micro mash brewing, is where you buy basically an extract syrup. They've done the mash for you. They've gotten all the sugars out of the grain and everything, and they condense it into syrup. So you brew with that with some little bit of grain for color and flavor. But then after I got out of college, I did build an all grain system. in my garage, and that's what I brewed on until we moved, built a new house, and then I kind of took a break from it for a while. But then so that's kind of how I got into it, and then when we moved out here, it kind of went from there, and then that's a different story.
So there's not any like certification or anything that you need to do in order to like really get into?
No, back when I graduated, I think other than UC Davis, I don't think there was any brewery. Maybe OSU might have had one, but UC Davis was really the first brewery program that you could get a degree in. I think it's a job that really is well tailored to an apprenticeship kind of, what do they call it, on-ramp or sort of funnel into the job, just because there's so much you can learn on the job. Now, like Ellensburg now, Central Washington does have a brewing program. You can get a degree in it because you started seeing, when I was homebrewing, you started seeing some viticulture, some wineries programs coming into some of those areas. But no, it was, there's really very few barriers to entry. You just got to be willing to kind of get yourself dirty and get in there and do it.
That's great. I mean, that's really cool. Brewing is one of those things that I've always been curious about. You know, I don't really know much about it. But it does seem like one of those really cool kind of trades, especially anything that you can kind of grow and process into product, you know, something I really like. So.
It's fun, you know, it's one of those things that there's always something different. There's always challenges to overcome. There's always things that are potentially can go right, can go wrong. There's a lot of little, you know, in large swaths, brewing's a fairly simple kind of enterprise, but within those large kind of chunks of things that you're doing, there's a lot of little nuance that you can build in just based on techniques and mostly, you know, temperatures, timings, those kind of things.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges you've kind of encountered along the way, either through like the learning curve of what you're doing, or even into the running the business aspect?
The running of the business wasn't terrible for me. I think the biggest challenge that we had after we got open and we were a tap room was distribution. Distribution is a whole other animal, and it's got its own sort of ins and outs. And we were real fortunate early on to be partnered with Fort George Brewery over in Astoria. They distribute our beer on the Washington coast, Chehalis area, and then down into the northwest Oregon coast. And, you know, a nice thing that since they're a brewery themselves, they really understand the challenges we face and kind of the things that we want to see. So other than distribution, you know, it's just, it's competition. It's fighting for, not competition from other breweries, because obviously there's no other breweries on the peninsula.
Right.
It's competition for getting people in the door. It's competition for, you know, you're trying to give them an experience that they want to come back for, and that's our job number one is to make an experience that they want to come back for.
Right,
I've always said that selling the first pint of beer is pretty easy to somebody, but selling them the 10th pint of beer is a little more of a challenge.
Yeah, that's why the most important service of the brewery is trivia night, right?
Yeah, trivia night's been good for us. You know, we started trivia night long time ago. The commander of Cape Disappointment, the school, I believe he was, his wife just had this wild hair where she wanted to run trivia. Yeah. So we kind of gave her a stage to do it, and we've really done it ever since. We take the summers off, but we're on I believe our 4th trivia host now.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things that it's a lot of work, you know. We don't pay them much.
I've known, you know, a lot of at the college areas that I was in, and you know, there was always some sort of brewery or bar or some sort of place, and there's always a trivia night to go to. Yeah. And like it seems to be like one of those staples, like, you know, pretzels or something. I don't know.
It's one of those things that just it keeps people in the door.
Yeah.
You know, people like trivia. People like something to go do, something different, sit there and have a couple drinks and do the trivia thing. And it's been real successful. And we've started bingo here recently. Oh, yeah. The first Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, and I think for running businesses and things like that, like it's understanding like the philosophy behind it and like what it really is all about. While we may have like a good product, like in our shop, we believe that our product is like the best, and we are constantly going out and trying other places, right, and ranking ourselves and trying to see how we measure up. But aside from that, like with all of the training and stuff that I do with the people that come in and work on our team, is to say that like our most important commodity is hospitality.
Right.
And, you know, it's all about cultivation and community and all that stuff. You know, beer, for the most part, has been that throughout history. Like, people don't even realize that pretty much like the American Revolution was started in pubs. You know, these guys would come hang out and sit together. You know, a lot of big movements started in those areas.
Well, in the 18th century, you didn't need a reason to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what they drank. You know, they're drinking Madeira at 8 in the morning, kind of thing. A glass of porter or whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and you know, it was the safer choice of drinking too.
Yeah, and it was definitely the meeting room kind of culture, and you know, there was lots of, you know, talk of liberty and things like that. And typically,
that's where conversation started.
The guy who built the Rue, Mark Johnson, built the Lost Rue Brewery. What he always said was, when the spirits are in, the truth comes out. It's very true. Very true. And it just kind of, you know, it's absolutely a social lubricant.
Oh yeah. It's been a part of the thing. I did a little bit of a drinking history when I was in college, and looking at like how much that's always just played a part in the culture and, you know, even the history of the United States and all that stuff. It's, you know, for however much prohibition has been a thing in our history, you know, it was addressing some real issues. But there's also a lot of things that came out of that, you know, completely changed the way that we drink and behave and socialize too. Sure. So, but anyway, now you say you started this not on your own, but with
my wife, Michelle.
Okay.
Her and I. So when we first moved, we bought a beach house here in 2007. Okay. And then in 2010, our jobs, and we moved here from Vancouver, Washington. Our jobs had kind of run their course as far as what we're doing. Because I had been working at a CPA firm, Moss Adams, and then I had just kind of gotten tired of public accounting. So I went to work at the trucking company, and we both kind of tired of it. So we moved out here. And then in 2010, in 2012, the former owners of the Lost Rue, Mark and Helen Johnson, wanted their own beer on tap. And they kind of knew I was a home brewer just because we knew in a small town, you talk to people. And so they brought me on to put together recipes and start brewing for them. But once we opened up the tap room in 2014, we went through about a year. And after a year, we expanded to a 10-barrel brewing system from our 1.5-barrel system that we started with. And at that point, I told Michelle I needed help. Because we would brew in the morning, and she was helping me at that point, but she was also running a house cleaning business called Tidy by the Sea that she had started that was very, very successful. Yeah. Had a couple employees, and she cleaned a lot of houses on the peninsula. But once we added that 10-barrel system, we were brewing in the morning, working the tap room at night, and it got to the point where something kind of had to give, and I just said, I need help. And because we had myself and one employee, and then Michelle would work in the tap room in the evenings. But it became, after about a year, she shut down Tidy, or sold it, and then she's been with us, so full time. She's been doing Jetty. Now recently, she's opened a yoga studio up in the Chautauqua Lodge called Inspired Mind Matters. So she's getting pulled in that direction too. Right. But she's the president of North Jetty Brewing, so she's obviously still very, very involved.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Obviously we're new to the area, and we weren't around when you guys opened. But it appears that you guys did some really interesting promotions in there. When I go into the space, I see names all over the place.
Yeah. So when we first opened, there was no Kickstarter. Yeah. Kickstarter wasn't really a thing, and if it was, no one had really heard of it. Right. So what we did is we decided to do, but what other places were doing was a thing called a mug club, where you could pay an annual fee and you get a mug with your name on it, or a handle with your name on it, and you get some discounts or whatever it is. And we didn't want to do that because we didn't have storage for mugs. When we first opened our place, if you've been there, the way it's laid out, storage is a bit at a premium. And so we started doing this thing called a Founder Club, and people buy a Founder Club and they get a steel growler and a shirt. And then the big thing is founders drink at our place out of a 20-ounce glass that says Founder on it, rather than a 16-ounce just shaking glass. And it was real popular. It's become this kind of thing where if they're in town, people want to be on the wall. People like seeing their name up there and pointing it out to their friends. So it worked, is that it kind of built in some people felt like they were really invested in North Jetty and wanted to see it do well. And so I think it did help us not only get some money in the door when we were building the place out. And as you know, it takes money and time to build out and do all that stuff. As we were doing that, it got some money in the door and kind of helped us get off the ground that way.
That's really cool. I mean, it's trying to, allocate all those funds and be able to not just also get the funds, but it's also great ways of being able to promote and get the buzz going about what you're doing, what you got coming on, and just being in there, I was just like, that's really cool, and everybody's always interested to find out what I started going like, these aren't beer names. Whose names are these?
Now, people ask me sometimes, like tourists or just people that haven't been in before, and they'll say, what are all the names up? And I say, it's people we've 86'd. We throw them out, we put them on the wall. But no, it really has built a sense of community. Michelle, my wife, she always calls North Jetty, she likes to call it the Long Beach Peninsula's living room. We like people to come in and hang out. We're fairly light food service. We're like, as you mentioned, that kind of old coffee house, old drinking parlor kind of approach, where if you're sitting there not bothering, same thing you run into in Britain, if you're going to sit there for 8 hours, no one's going to bother you. You can sit there and get a pint and come up and grab another one. Obviously, the things being what they are, we don't overserve, and we make sure that people aren't getting too looped up. But we've always never had much of a problem with that. So we really do feel that we're a gathering spot and we're a place we want people to feel like they can just kind of hang out, play a game, and have fun.
Every episode of Bare Bones Media takes time to organize, set up, research, film, edit, and sometimes even re-edit. And time is money. So today's video is sponsored by Bare Bones Aesthetics. Bare Bones Aesthetics is a graphic design business that specializes in logo design, product design, and videography. If you or your business or entity is interested in cultivating a recognizable brand, Bare Bones Aesthetics would love to start a conversation. Consultation is free. So feel free to email us at BearbonesAe@gmail.com. Enjoy the rest of this episode. We've talked a bit about kind of where things have come from, how you got into all of that. Some of the challenges you guys have in running the business. I mean, do you find there to be any big challenges?
Like everybody, I think on the peninsula right now, our biggest challenge is staffing. With the rise of Airbnb and with the rise of those kind of direct-to-consumer house, short-term rentals, we've seen a lot of workforce housing and the potential for workforce housing on the peninsula go away. I think it was there before COVID, but COVID brought so many new residents, which is great. This kind of Zoomtown kind of idea brought more residents. I think we went up 15-20% in permanent residents. But at the same time, you also had a lot of people buying second houses. You had a lot of generational housing changes, going from mom, dad to the kids. And the problem is the kids are keeping it as a rental or putting it in a short-term rental pool. And so the net result is, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house costs $2,500 a month to rent. I've seen single rooms go for $1,200. So that staffing is very hard. So as more restaurants and as more bars come in, it's great. It's more offerings for the locals and for the tourists. But the first question is, who's going to staff them? Where are you going to find staff at? Because that is really I think the number one challenge. And then second to that would be, we saw the cost of our raw ingredients has gone up a lot, with inflation, just like everything else. And it's, you can only raise prices so far to kind of cover that. So, those are probably the two biggest challenges, the cost of materials and stuffing.
And I know that what we deal out here kind of running businesses is a little bit different than say, other places, people are opening stuff out in Vancouver or Seattle or something like that. But understanding the climate and the area and the challenges that area has is always important for wherever people want to open businesses. Because I know there's a lot of people that would like to open more businesses out here, us being one of them. The housing one has been one that I think we've seen as well. Just because, here it's pretty easy because we're kind of appealing to the teen crowd. And it's very simple as to what we're doing. We're kind of introductory mixology.
Sure.
We're doing cheese and milk.
It's you have, and it's one of the things that when we first opened, and when you're kind of getting going, we didn't really look to it. We were just kind of being swept along with the current a little bit. But one benefit that I think that you have over us is you're between the stoplights here.
Yeah.
And when you're between the stoplights, you get a lot more foot traffic.
Yeah, you'll be surprised how much we get past, though.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying they're not going to walk by, but I'm saying at least they have the opportunity to go in the door.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would. I mean, I can't imagine doing this and not being so central, but it's surprising how many people like still open up our doors and go, "Are you guys open?" We're like, yeah.
That's always the thing, and part of that is, people, if you're like this on vacation, but a lot of people are just kind of, the sort of 10,000-yard stare when they're on vacation and just going shop to shop to shop, and not hardly even knowing what they're walking into as they're walking down the main drag. But we've always had a pretty good time getting people in. We're fortunate, we're right across the street from 42nd Street, and then the Trustees and the Inskeeps redoing Chico's has been a huge boom for us this summer. It was massive because there's so many more people that come into Seaview now for Chico's, and now they're reopening Lori's, the breakfast plate right next to us. That has been huge for us. Is a little more investment going into Seaview to try to kind of build it back up to honestly where it was when we first started coming here, because with Kevin Bredfield passing away, Chico's kind of slowed down for a while. Quality dropped a little bit, but ever since they sold to the Trustees and the Inskeeps, I think it's been fantastic. Really been good for us, been good for the community.
Yeah, and there's a lot, I think, of that people don't consider is the success of other people around you also affects your success. But kind of on that note, so other people that might be interested in opening businesses wherever they are, or even out here on the coast, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I would say to somebody, maybe don't open another bubble tea place. How many bubble tea places can one place sustain? Yeah. And so it's find a niche that isn't currently being filled and fill that niche. Yeah. So a lot of people are like, well, I want to make a widget. Let's say it's like, well, you got 5 people making widgets around here. Why don't you make something else? Right. Something else that you can do and you can do well, and you can be, if not love, you can like enough that it gives you a lifestyle and those kind of things. But that's the biggest thing is finding a niche and filling it that isn't currently being filled. And then, second to that is, like always, is location. It helps to be on the main drag. It helps to be where a lot of people are passing by or walking by.
So, what's next? What do you guys got coming up? Where are you guys going? What's your plans for the future?
We're working on some stuff right now. We're working on adding some additional food. We're trying to draw in some more people. So I would say, right now, we're kind of in the beginning phases of sort of, I would say we're coming out of the first 10 years of North Jetty. We're moving into the next 10 years. So I would say, I don't want to give away too much right now, but in the next 4 to 5 months, I think people are going to be seeing some fairly beefy changes at North Jetty as far as what we do, how we operate. We're still going to be a brewery. We're still first and foremost a brewery. We're a manufacturer, that kind of thing. That's my background in accounting, is manufacturing and distribution. Right. And so that's what we do. But you hit on a good point, is that other businesses doing well around you is important for you doing well. And what we've said out here for a long time is all boats rise with the tide. The more people we get here, the more people are going to the bubble tea place. The more people are going to North Jetty. The more people are going to Chico's. And you just need more and more. And again, that's where you hit that staffing bottleneck. But at the same time, I know that the city's working on looking at workforce housing, some kind of things. I know that there are developers in the area that are looking at workforce housing and trying to pull it together. And so, for us, it's just, it's staying relevant. It's catching the newer generation of the drinking public and what we might need to offer them to keep them coming in the door. And it's, it's always playing nice with our neighbors and those kind of things. Like, for instance, there's no way I'd put in pizza. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great product. I think it's an easy thing to do. I think it would be great for us, but I'm not going to do it because I kind of, I shoot myself in the foot a little bit that way. And so, for us, it's like, it's that same thing. It's like, okay, where's the next niche to find for the next 10 years, and how do we fill that? And that's kind of what we're looking at. So I'm a little cagey, I guess. I don't want to give too much away, but I kind of go by that, keep your plans dark and then move quickly.
Well, for everybody that wants to follow you and get connected and watch everything you got coming, where should they go?
We're on Facebook, North Jetty Brewing. We're on Instagram. We also, we always try to put up posters and stuff at the brewery. So the social media, we try to really keep all our events that we're going to have, our bingo dates, our trivia dates, any kind of beer releases we have coming up, any kind of parties, those kind of things. We always try to pump that out there. But otherwise, we're open 7 days a week. We open at noon every day. Our closing times are a little different depending on what day it is, but it's at least usually until 7 to 10, somewhere in there, depending on the day.
Well, one other question. So, which one are you for? Is the blonde, brunette, redhead? What kind of drink? What kind of?
Oh, what do I drink? I probably my two. I like big dark beers. So big dark style. Like right now we have one called Wave Cutter. It's an imperial porter. It's based on the mash that we do for the collaboration whiskey we make with the Drift, the Semper Paratus porter whiskey. We have that one on right now. I love that. I'm an IPA fan. And then probably sours. Kind of similar to wine tasting. And it's always, to me, it's not, do I like this beer? It's like, okay, what are the style characteristics this beer is trying to achieve, and does this beer achieve those style characteristics? And does it achieve it with sort of a sense of style and a sense that makes you want to drink another one? And that's one of the jobs of a craft brewer, I think, is constant kind of honing that craft and working on it and talking to our colleagues in the brewing industry and going to other breweries and seeing what they're doing. R&D, research and duplicate. So that we're always, you're always trying to take inspiration from other places and see what they're doing and what's cool. And
just like any other art form, you're kind of always looking for inspiration. You're always looking, here and there, and you're saying like, I love this. This is awesome. Or I'd like to take this and add this into what I'm doing.
And I think with so much around here now, it's less if you build it, they will come. Now it's like you have to pull them in. And that's the biggest difference I've seen. When we first opened, man, it was like all you had to do is say, hey, we got craft beer on tap, and people flocked to you. And now people aren't as stunned by that. I'm going to the brewery. Now breweries are ubiquitous, all these kind of things. It used to be everybody wanted to see the brewery and go in the back, and I was like, I've seen them. So it's just, it's a maturing industry, and now we have to kind of go from that sort of rebel, that kind of rebel brewer, sort of kind of guerrilla business owner, to say now we're part of a sort of mature industry with all its own kind of things. So we have to kind of change our outlook a little bit and change our offerings to match up with that.
That sounds good. I'm excited to kind of stay connected and see what's going on.
Please do.
And we'll have to come by, maybe do a on-location thing, talk some more beer. So.
You probably want to talk to Michelle. She's way more entertaining than I am.
That'll be fun. That'll be good. Get the best of both of you guys. So.
For sure.
So, all right. Thanks, guys, for watching. So.
Cheers. Thanks.
And that wraps up our interview for today on Bare Bones Media. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you have people that you would like to see on this channel, well, leave a comment or send us an email at bearbonesae@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.